Issuing a communique, the President's media division announced that the curfew imposed in the districts of Colombo, GAMPAHA, KALUTARA and PUTTALAM has been extended until 5 a.m. on Monday, the 4th of May.
According to the statement, curfew in the other districts will be lifted at 5 a.m. on the 27th of this month and reimposed at 8 p.m. on the same day. Curfew in these districts will continue to be lifted at 5 a.m. and reimposed at 8 p.m. on the subsequent days until Friday, the 1st of May. According to the release, restrictions will be relaxed in a manner where private and public institutions in the districts of Colombo, GAMPAHA, KALUTARA and PUTTALAM will be able to function even though curfew may continue to be in effect. Only those leaving home for work will be allowed to use public transport, including buses and trains. Those who are leaving their homes for essential purposes will only be allowed to do so on certain days of the week as per the last digit on their national identity cards. Those with the following last digits on their NIC will be allowed to leave their homes for essential purposes on these respective days: Monday, number 1 or 2, Tuesday, number 3 or 4, Wednesday, number 5 or 6, Thursday, number 7 or 8, Friday, number 9 or 0. Travel between districts will remain restricted. However, people will be allowed to travel between districts for employment purposes and provisions of essential services. Schools, universities, tuition classes, other educational institutions and cinemas will continue to be closed until further notice. In districts where curfew has been lifted, a curfew may be imposed in certain areas that are identified as high-risk zones.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa informed the Maha Sangha of the Tri Sects about the prevailing situation of the Covid-19 outbreak in the country.
The meeting was held at the Presidential Secretariat yesterday. The President explained the decisions that have been taken to curb the spread of the virus, the quarantine process, the concessions given to the people, and the steps that will be taken to revive the local economy.
When I made a pledge as the President of Sri Lanka in front of the Ruanvelli Maha Sangha, I spoke about the immense support received by the Maha Sangha to come into power. I will never forget that support. Also, I constantly expect their support, advice and guidance given by you to me and my government. Many chief incumbent theras have recommended that I seek the advice and guidance from a board of advisors comprised of theras. It is in light of that I have invited all of you here for this occasion today. The Board of Advisors will comprise of the Chief Prelates of the Malbatu and Asgiri chapters, Chief Prelates of the Amarapura Maha Sect and Chief Prelate of the Ramanya Sect, who did not attend the meeting today due to unfortunate circumstances, and other theras who they will recommend. I suggest that this Board of Advisors should convene on the Friday of the third week of every month at the Presidential Secretariat.
Sikurada Savasa Tunata Mema Sthanidima Mem Upadeshaka Mandalaya Raswimata.
Today people do not respect the law. This can be disastrous. People are negligent towards following the guidelines with regard to the curfew. Those kinds of people should be punished. Without punishment when it is due, this country cannot go forward. A punishment should be imposed like confiscating the property of the people who are arrested. An immense amount of work is being done by the Tri-Forces and the police. Vehicles should be given to them to carry out these affairs. Some can voice their opposition towards this. The Maha Sangha as well as the people of this country praise the efforts taken to curb this pandemic and the mechanism that is put in place to control this situation. We can overcome all these challenges. Many concerns were mentioned today, but I would like to sincerely mention the fact that we should follow an approach with a proper knowledge of the people's perception. In postponing the general election, the chairman of the National Elections Commission said that it is solely because of the coronavirus pandemic that the election will be postponed. That is a false statement. It is not because of the coronavirus that the election is postponed. It is because of the curfew and the restrictions that have been imposed as a result of the coronavirus. If it is due to the virus that the election is not being held, then it is fair to say that the election cannot be held until the last corona patient recovers. This is an attempt to reconvene the previous parliament in the guise of the virus. The Maha Sangha is the greatest strength of this government. What I am saying is to convene this parliament instead of reconvening the old parliament.
Now, in an update of the current situation of the COVID-19 outbreak here in Sri Lanka, the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the country rose to 449. A total of 29 new COVID-19 infections were detected in the country today. The number of patients who recovered from COVID-19 stands at 118. Leave of all Navy personnel have been cancelled until further notice. Navy Commander Vice Admiral Priyal De Silva said that no one will be allowed to leave the premises of the naval bases. He added that these steps will be in effect until the situation in the country becomes more favourable.
Navy Commander Vice Admiral Priyal De Silva said that information on those who associated with the sailors who tested positive for COVID-19 are being gathered. He added that steps are being taken to direct these people to quarantine themselves. These areas were named as locations where Navy sailors from the Valisara camp either tested positive for COVID-19 or are suspected to have contracted the virus. Polonnarua, Kurunegala, Polgahavela, Hambantota, Gampula, Vaunia, Tangol, Anuradhapura, Sevanagala, Hatton and Marvanella. Meanwhile, areas including Kurunegala, Galgamua, Velimada, Ampara, Polonnarua, Anuradhapura, Mahiyanganaya, Kandy, Gaul, Ratnapura and Kalutara have been identified as areas where these Navy sailors reside or have travelled to during the recent past. A lorry driver who travelled with a sailor from the Valisara Navy camp who tested positive for COVID-19 was sent for quarantine today. He had visited the Polonnarua General Hospital for treatment yesterday and later returned home in a three-wheeler. Residents of 9 houses in Udapola, Polgahavela were directed to self-quarantine yesterday after a sailor from the Valisara Navy camp who resides there tested positive for COVID-19. According to our correspondent, 2 ATM machines and a number of shops in the area were also closed down. Meanwhile, a house in Udunavulla, Hambantota was quarantined today. A Navy sailor from the Valisara camp who lives there had left his residence on the 16th of last month and returned home on the 20th. According to our correspondent, this sailor tested positive for COVID-19 and was admitted to the National Institute of Infectious Diseases. Meanwhile, a sailor from the Valisara camp who travelled in a bus belonging to the Navy had visited a phone shop in Tangol. This area was closed down today. Residents of Panankania village in Nochiagama were temporarily placed under lockdown after a Navy sailor who tested positive for COVID-19 had visited the village. Meanwhile, a Navy sailor from Valisara who visited a temple in Anuradhapura was sent for quarantine today along with a group at the temple. A sailor who tested positive for COVID-19 had travelled to his residence in Dahatunahamara Junction in Sevanagala a week ago. According to our correspondent, 5 members of his family were tested for the virus today. Meanwhile, a Navy sailor who travelled in the same bus with the Navy sailor from Polonnarua who tested positive for COVID-19 was directed to self-quarantine along with the members of his family today. Previously, a sailor in Ramdivala, Marvanella and members of his family were directed to self-quarantine. Today, this sailor informed authorities that he has begun to display symptoms of the virus. According to our correspondent, he was sent to Kandy for testing. Meanwhile, 6 sailors attached to the Valisara Navy base who were on leave were tested for COVID-19 today. Our correspondent in the area said that a number of areas where these soldiers visited were also disinfected today. Our correspondent confirmed that a Navy sailor in Mahakattakodia, Vaunia, was tested for COVID-19 today. 2 sailors attached to the Valisara Navy camp residing in KALUTARA tested positive for COVID-19 today. A total of 8 Navy sailors in the area were previously quarantined.
Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavindra Silva expressed his views regarding the situation in Anuradhapura.
We identified 52 COVID-19 individuals yesterday, out of which 30 patients were from the Velisara Naval Base. Another 8 infected persons have left the camp on leave. Another 10 persons from the Bandaranaike were tested positive after being sent to quarantine centres. The speciality lies with another 2 individuals. One of them is involved in the health field and the other is a pregnant woman who had arrived from Meeturamulla. This increases the total amount of COVID-19 infections. The number of recoveries is at 109. We have information of all the social contacts the Navy sailors and their families have made, and we are taking steps to quarantine them.
සියලුම දෙනා contact තියෙන සියලුම අපි සොයාගෙන තිබෙනවා. ඔවුන් සියලු දෙනාම මේ අවස්ථාවේදී අද දිනේදී නිරෝධායන ලක් කිරීමට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා.
Meanwhile, the Chief Sangha of the Northern and North Central provinces, Venerable Nugatenne Panyananda Thera, expressed these views regarding controlling the spread of the COVID-19 virus. We are seeing reflections of an extremely deadly virus. It is important that everyone supports these initiatives and adhere to regulations responsibly. If people who are already suffering with kidney disease get infected with this virus, the road to recovery would be extremely difficult. We believe that if we can bear this up for another few days, we will be able to completely overcome this situation. There are many kidney patients in the Rajarata region, so we kindly request the President and other relevant authorities to implement a special program to protect these people.
The fishmonger from Gramodaya Mawata Peliyandala, who tested positive for COVID-19, returned home today after making a full recovery.
After identifying the person from Peliyandala Gramodaya Mawata, a huge crowd was sent for self-quarantine and was subjected to PCR tests. The health officials stated that the patient recovering after 5 days of contraction was a unique situation. Luckily, there is no chance for the disease to spread to others because the load of the virus in his body was low. He was hospitalized on the same day he was infected. After the first test, it was confirmed that the individual is infected with COVID-19. He was self-quarantined after many tests conducted at the IDH based on the specialist's advice. It is correct to say that the threat of the virus in Peliyandala is now reduced. After many PCR tests, we were unable to identify any individual who was infected by this person. Meanwhile, a girl from 123 Watta from Bandaranaike Mawata in Colombo 12 was tested positive for COVID-19 after testing her samples. There are 9 members in the family. We have tested 8 people out of them so far. Only the child had been infected out of the 8 people. There is a member of the family who is differently abled. We sent 14 people from 3 families to quarantine centers yesterday. More than 150 PCR tests were conducted in the area. According to our correspondent, samples for testing were collected today as well. Meanwhile, samples of 15 pregnant mothers living in the isolated area in Beruala were collected yesterday. Meanwhile, we met people who have been stranded due to the curfew and travel restrictions that are in effect across the island. Such a group of people gathered at the Keselwatta police station in Colombo today. These people were unable to leave Colombo before the curfew was imposed. Some of them had travelled to Colombo for work, and others had travelled to Colombo to attend weddings and funerals. They were stuck in the area, falling under the purview of the Keselwatta police division for over a month.
The owners of the boarding houses are asking us to leave. They are asking us to pay the rent or leave. We came here with our children and now we are suffering. I came here for a wedding. I have a child who doesn't have his mother. His mother died of cancer. I left my child at another person's house and came here. I worked at a garment factory. That factory closed down. We are helpless. We have to pay our rent. We kindly request officials to free us from these shackles.
According to the Colombo District Secretary Pradeep Yasaratna, the number of people stranded in Colombo stands at about 26,000. He added that steps have been taken to provide them with the required facilities.
The Peliyagoda Fish Market Complex, which was closed down for the past 3 days, was reopened for business today.
The complex was inspected by the police before it was opened to the public. Only authorized people were allowed to enter to the premises.
After 3 days, we started our business today. The general public was able to enter. The small-scale wholesale businessmen arrived. There were no businessmen from the large-scale wholesale businesses. We had more business from Kalmune and Valachene than from the southern province. Face masks and other health precautions were not taken by them. In order to continue doing business in this complex, we must maintain our safety. We request everyone to come here only for necessary matters.
However, the fishmongers claim that they were not able to make enough income today.